Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Three Hamster Boys podcast. I'm your host, Alexander, and joining me on my right is my brother, Nick.
Hello.
And on my left is our father, Jeff.
Our Father.
Yes, collectively.
I don't know why I went super YouTube intro for this one, but I wanted to do something a little different.
Maybe it's because it's an exciting episode.
Yeah, it's a exciting and different episode.
Yeah.
too.
It's a dramatic episode.
Dramatic might not be the right word for that.
I think the closest thing we've had to this before was your submarine episode.
Yeah, you talking about submarines, and we just grilled you about questions about submarines.
So now we're flipping the script.
Yeah.
We're flipping the script. I'm going to be the one with no knowledge.
The curiosity.
Yeah, by far this was kind of my idea because it's one of those things I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
Well, what are we talking about?
So today we are going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, but more kind of like a broad scope of TTRPGs as a whole. If you're unfamiliar with that term, that is tabletop role-playing games. And we'll go in a little bit more about that. I'm sure that was one of your questions.
It is.
But
So when I came up with this topic because I thought it was interesting to learn more details about it, I said we have to have.
Oh, this is my transition. We're having mead. Of course.
And here's the curious thing about it. I said, well, let me find a local distillery,
Yeah.
a local brewery. And I'm looking, all of a sudden I go, there's one that's a mile away from our house.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
8 minutes away.
it was
really close.
It was crazy. I mean, it's a mile as the crow flies because it's across the river. You just can't go over the river at that spot.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of us knew that was there, right?
No.
No, and we initially we couldn't find it, but
Yeah, we got there.
We got there eventually.
And
But
also
the thing we're talking about, as everyone's stealing my thunder, this is Thistle Rock Mead Company. And this whole episode is mead and honey wine as just a collection. And we are starting it off with the Acacia Monoflower, which is stated to be a more traditional mead with notes of a crisp apple.
Yeah, and I think it's a mead/honey wine. We were kind of talking about that before the show started. I think this will be a little like drier, kind of closer to what we'd expect with a normal wine, with like the sweet notes of mead that kind of comes with fermented honey.
Well, and then the other part of this is that before we went to Thistle Rock, because we went there to pick it up and do some tasting.
Yeah.
I had always had a very bad impression of mead,
This is crazy.
and you guys have enjoyed mead.
We've had some really fun and good mead.
I've been to several Ren fairs where I've drinking several glasses or tankards of mead.
And I think I haven't been to a lot of Ren fairs.
Right.
And then when
we got to fix that.
well, we do have to fix that. But when I have tasted mead, it probably was more. It's going to sound bad. The Budweiser of mead, where it's not that good,
Right.
And so when we started tasting this, we tasted some crazy ones. Like that coffee mead was just incredible.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. And the cherry one that I got was pretty darn awesome too.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's taste this one
Yeah.
rather than talking about.
We're
the
dwelling
mead.
on the past.
Yeah.
Let's start drinking.
Yes.
To dwell in the past for one more time, I'm just really happy that they took me along with them this time.
It's a rarity every time.
Yeah, I know. This is almost exactly what I'd expect it to taste like.
Yeah.
It smells like a wine when you smell it. I think it has those kind of like dry notes like a wine does, and then at the end there you're like, oh, it's mead though.
It's
Yeah,
a sweetness.
It finishes off with like a full body mead taste for a moment.
Yeah, it does. That's I would say that's a really good drinkable wine for like a dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
Or cheese and crackers,
It's very clean.
Yep. Do you like this one? I know that in the past you've had kind of mixed feelings about mead. I think you really liked the mead that we tried.
Yep.
How does this kind of compare in your expectations?
I think the reason I liked the meads that we tried were because they were very strong in flavor.
Yeah.
Right.
This is much milder.
Yes.
Now I like dry wine, so it adds a plus to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the mead taste lingers on my tongue, and it's not. I would say that this would be considered for me an average tasting mead.
Yeah.
Or average tasting wine. So I like it. It's probably not as good as the two that I really liked that we tasted before.
Right.
But I still think this is really good. And I mean, I think it's, if this is the simplest and most straightforward one, I'm excited for the next two.
I agree. I think it is. I think you're right. Like this is like should be the average.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is a very clean, tasty, sippable drink, but it's not like knocking my socks off or anything.
Right.
But I think that's kind of what we try to do with a lot of the drinks, especially when you're making cocktails, is try to have that first drink be the base level.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. I also am just really curious about your opinion because I feel like this is one of the few times where I feel like you've got age and experience on us when it comes to
when
some
it
of
comes
the
to
alcohol.
alcohol.
Yeah. And this is like the first time where I can kind of explore your experience of mead, where I feel like I've probably had a little bit more mead.
Yeah,
or enjoyed a little bit more mead.
I definitely think that that's the case. I have never sought out or been said, "Hey, that's a lot of. I want to drink some mead here."
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've drunk some really horrible things.
Yeah.
And lots of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you say, "Did you ever drink Pabst Blue Ribbon?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've drinking Pabst
Of
Blue
course.
Ribbon."
PBR.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right.
Well, yeah. Oh my God. I didn't even recognize that that's what that was.
That's PBR.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just, the blue ribbon, the logo is like very in my mind.
Yeah.
But for a second there, it was like,
You
that's
disassociated-
that's different from PBR.
Oh, yeah.
but-
You mean the Professional Bull Riding
Right,
Association?
of course, yeah.
And then you got some natty lights.
Yeah,
Natty
Natty
Lights.
Lights.
or Meisterbrow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was just talking with a friend. This will be really quick. I was just talking with a friend. He was at a bar, and they were having PBR versus Heineken night, and you had to choose a team.
How is that even hard?
Apparently, my friends in our D&D group do not like Heineken. And it's not even close.
Okay, wait. Mom does not like Heineken, or doesn't like. It's either Heineken or Lowenbrau she doesn't like.
I was drinking Heineken when I was in Amsterdam, and I thought that was fine.
I feel like Heineken is like very like simple.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It-
We digress.
It's the Budweiser of European beer.
Right.
I guess so.
But like, I
But
feel
like
like, that,
PBR,
trumps PBR.
PBR does not compare to either of those.
All right.
We're getting into an alcohol talk.
Okay. So we've kind of introduced the episode, but where did this kind of come from? Why did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so
topic?
I think when we started talking about this, one of the reasons why I thought this might be interesting is because when I was in high school, Dungeons and Dragons was kind of that, edge group of kids that played it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now my brother did other ones. He was into tabletop sports games. My brothers and I had been into these very extravagant tabletop games, board games that were a lot of pieces and whatever.
Right.
And then there was a group that played Dungeons and Dragons, and it got a lot of bad notoriety in the 80s just because it was not mainstream. I think a lot of it was due to people not understanding what the game was or how you play it. Nowadays, though, it was remarkable to me that not only do you guys play it in person, you play it on phone calls, online.
Yeah.
You guys play 2-person games, you play 8-person games, and you have this very social aspect
Yeah.
to the role-playing game, which I think is incredible. It was social before, but it was social for antisocials. It was a particular group of people including your mother,
Yeah.
who played
shots
this.
fired.
Yeah, who I didn't know when she was in high school, but it's a very different vibe now than it was, and so I think the reason I thought this might be interesting is to get an understanding of what is an RPG for you, how do you guys play it, and then what does this mean socially for you guys?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about is like very, very true in kind of a similar way that like anime was like the kind of weird kid,
The
thing.
outcast.
Yeah,
Like it was shunned on.
yeah, and now it's really kind of hit into mainstream. I think like big shows like Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer have kind of helped propel it forward. And I think in a similar way, games like Dungeons and Dragons releasing more simplified versions like 5e, which is a lot like the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, is a lot more manageable for newer players to get into versus some of those older editions that were very like rules heavy. And you need to do a lot of like research and reading now.
And honestly, like a lot of math as
Yeah,
well.
and a lot of math.
Like
as
there
well.
were formulas that people had to learn for 3rd and 3.5.
I'm not gonna lie, it is nerdy. Like there's no way to go about it. It is nerdy, but I think 5e. Nick and I were talking about this. You don't even need to read the book to play 5e.
No.
But yeah, so I guess how we got into Dungeons and Dragons is kind of a good starting point here. Nick and I have always been like theater kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my friends who I did like theater and stuff was like, hey, this game seems interesting. We should try to play this. And then I remember it was like our dining room table downstairs was a bunch of like my high school friends, never played Dungeons and Dragons before. And like we were just learning how to play the game with like 12 people in the dining room.
My first was I was in 7th grade, and a group of my friends were like, hey, 5th edition is like a thing. You should join in on this. And I was like, I'm a nerd, but what are you talking about?
What are you saying to me?
And they were like, we got the science teacher to lend his classroom for the morning before school starts. We're going to meet there.
Nice.
And then that was my intro to it.
Dude, I totally forgot it. Like that was your intro, your start into it.
Yeah, so I mean, crazy. But I been playing ever since then.
Yeah.
Like, we met like pretty regularly.
Yeah. And I would say like Nick plays more than I do. I'd definitely say that.
Really?
Yeah. I think Nick plays way more than me. I think also like TTRPGs as well. I've really delved into like Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm familiar with other titles, but for the most part, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons.
So from a big picture perspective, so each of you plays a character.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
yeah.
Let's talk about a TTRPG.
Yeah.
So tabletop role playing game. That's what TTRPG stands for.
There's so many words, so many letters. What does that mean?
Tabletop. So, we'll walk through it. Tabletop it's the first part of it. Think of chess. Think of Monopoly. Think of Sorry. Those are tabletop games. You'd play on a tabletop with your friends or family in a comfortable environment, usually.
So I know you can go on YouTube and watch these very extravagant setups with,
Yeah.
buildings and characters and all this stuff. But then on the other hand, you can also see
Nothing.
no characters, just sheets out.
We'll you're getting ahead of us. I'm trying to describe
No, okay.
our role-playing game, the second part of tabletop RPG. Role-playing game, which is just as stated, it is you play a role in a game. So role-playing games aren't exclusive to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just what's referred to, because like you could say Clue is a role-playing game.
I was thinking about the murder mystery dinners that we used to have. Each of us
Absolutely.
played a role.
You are definitely role playing
Role-playing.
in that moment.
Yeah.
And it very similar, although I would consider the dinners closer to like a LARP,
Right.
which is a live action role play.
Yes.
We're gonna say a lot of
Yeah.
say a lot of
There's
things.
too many acronyms.
Wasn't LARP one of the born people?
But I think it's important to bring up LARP because I think a lot of times people confuse Dungeons and Dragons or like tabletop RPGs with LARP,
Yeah, we're not.
and there is like a difference.
There is a difference. Typically when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you're just showing up in whatever you were wearing that day, and you're just chilling on the couch, maybe drinking a beer,
Yeah.
right?
Got some Cheetos.
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's audio focused.
it's not physical.
Yeah.
You know, with the clientele that's expected, it's not physical. No two ways about it, right? It's not a physical thing. But with LARP, live action role playing, you're dressing up. You're going to locations, right? You're not doing
Right.
it in a basement. You're going to a forest. You're going to a field. You're going to special like locations that you've plotted out to reenact or walk through like a narrative experience.
Right.
That's a tabletop RPG. But in specific, the ones that we're talking about, there's a format or layout that most of these follow basically to a T on like the widest view, which is there is something called a game master is usually like the most general term.
Yep.
And then there are the players. There is usually one game master and any number of players that the game master is comfortable with.
It could be one player and one game master, or one game master and 12 players.
Yeah.
Or, I think typically a lot of these are built around like a 4-person group.
4 to 6,
Yeah,
I
4
think
to
is like
6.
the golden range.
But again, it really depends on the game master, and like if you're like, oh man, I have a group of 7 friends, I think they'd really be interested in this. I feel like you can run something.
You could
like
do
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing we were talking about was, and I think we're going to talk about this in the third segment, but the tabletop RPG is not particular to a particular genre or topic or theme, right? It could be pretty much anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
It can be any setting that you are interested in.
Yes.
With the ones that we're using as an example for Dungeons and Dragons, high fantasy for those listening.
Right.
Which is, if you're not familiar with the terminology high fantasy, just think of Lord of the Rings or like King Arthur era, where it's medieval, fairly like rudimentary technology, but there's magic and other
Right.
supernatural influences.
And always there's some sort of like magical races and beings, so you don't necessarily need to be a human. You could be an elf or a dwarf or a half orc
Or ballerina.
or a ballerina.
Sure.
But yes, the genres are kind of expansive, and the IPs are also expansive. If you love Star Wars, there is a Star Wars TTRPG out there.
I think I've actually played one when I was in high school.
I believe that, yeah.
Because we were doing something and we were traveling along, and it kind of followed the theme of an episode where
Yeah.
you go somewhere, you find something, you resolve it, and then
Yeah.
a red guy gets killed, and we're all set.
Perfect.
Wait, it's like, hey, hold on. No.
Are you? That's a Star Trek reference.
Star Trek.
Yeah, okay.
That leads us into the next sort of example of what you do, right, in these games, right? Because like I've said, there's a game master and there are players.
Yeah.
What's
And
the
you said it's not physical, so what's left?
so what do you do? So honestly, the bare minimum that you need, like pen and paper, is what it's also called.
Uh-huh.
Pen and paper RPG or pen and paper board games. I think
Or I think, yeah.
might just be pen and paper.
So yeah, some people just shorthand it to pen and paper.
Yeah. That's all you need. And then typically most of these games have your fantastical random number generators in the form of resin dice, which range from a variety of shapes. Every single system uses their dice differently or uniquely. The most notable and popular dice, especially in the Dungeons and Dragons space, which is the D20 or 20-sided die, has sort of made a name for itself in the space.
And we can talk about this later, but because this is a dice that's used for skill and level setting, right?
Basically everything.
Almost everything, yeah. But if that's kind of daunting to you, like you can raid your Yahtzee set, your Monopoly set, and the square dice, those are D6s, is your normal dice. Most games also use those in some form, and some of them use like the D6s as their primary kind of roll mechanic.
It's true. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we can.
But I do want to, as we're still talking about the intro of tabletop RPGs, I want to still like clarify like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And why it's compelling. I think that's like what I want to really like push in on, hit home on this first part. You are working together with the game master and the players to create a story that is uniquely yours. And that is the most enticing part about it. With all of these board games or video games or movies or TV shows, there is a set script narrative that has been decided before you even look at it. While you are playing Dungeons and Dragons or any of these TTRPGs, it is the player's freedom and enjoyment to not follow that script. The game master can have an idea of what he wants to accomplish. That's his input on the story. But the players paint the picture. And that is the most compelling part of it. You work together, everyone, to create a story, a narrative that is uniquely yours, with ups and downs based on the dice, your interactions, or just shenaniganery that can happen every time you meet up. And that is truly what pulled me in.
Yeah.
Because you would go, as a player, as a player of video games, you go, okay, option A or B, should I, choose that or that? When you play Dungeons and Dragons, you go, what does the barrel taste like?
Yeah.
And then you get a description and you're like, can I eat it? And you're like, yeah. You don't get that sort of freedom to just experience choice like that in any other medium.
Yeah.
Because there's a script, there's a structure to it that just can't give you that freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the part that I always love is that whenever you guys are talking to them or you're online playing these games, there's so much laughter, so much yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
It seems like such an immersive social kind of encounter that you're having with them, even if you're not sitting next to them.
It's true.
Yeah. I will say I do prefer like Dungeons and Dragons in person. I feel like I can emote more. Like there's a little bit of that theater kid coming out where like you can emote more. You can get really into it. And
you can read people's facial. You have scene partners right in front of you. Doing crazy faces.
And online can be good. You can have like your webcams on, but it's just not the same. But still, it's good to connect people from all over the place. Like my current Dungeons and Dragons group, I have people in like Georgia, in Texas, in South Dakota. Like we're just all over the place playing together and coming together in probably a way that we never really would ever. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And like you said, I think the draw for it is you go, hey, GM, can I do this? And the GM's like, yes, roll your dice.
Let's see how well you do that thing you're asking me to do. To slightly go into that, these dice that you roll, it has a factor that you get a result out of based on like how well your character is at it. Yep. Typically, like I'm going to climb a building, and if you are a weak, scrawny mage, you might not even be able to get your feet off the ground, sort of thing. But if you are a dexterous, very agile person, you could quickly scale the building, right? And then your dice applies to it, and everyone cheers in the air if you succeed, and everyone cheers in the air if you fail, because they like watching someone fall.
And the chaos is beautiful.
The chaos, yeah, it leads to fantastical moments where, oh, I'm going to walk across a tightrope over a guard. Oh no, I rolled a 1 and I face planted right in front of the guard.
Yeah.
And now everyone is just awkwardly looking at me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the social aspect of it.
Me
I just
too.
think that would be the best part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that playing video games, even though you may have, Discord running in the background and you're talking to people, it's still somewhat of a solo activity that you're doing. There's some games where you can play together with people, but I still think that playing on a computer game is a fairly lonely thing to do in a lot of things. I mean, I think it's entertaining, but I like the interaction with people. I'm not sure online Dungeons and Dragons would be appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that getting together, because your mom and I used to do mystery dinner theaters
Yeah.
Right.
every couple of months before we had children, BC.
Yeah.
And then and we loved that. We would all dress up, we would all be in there, we'd all have characters, and it just that interaction was just always what I liked.
Exactly.
You guys should go LARP.
We do. Like I said, yeah, that would probably be. And here's what's funny is, I know we're coming to the end of this episode or this segment.
Oh my God.
Trying to end it quick.
in the segment, but
We're out of here.
your mother came alive doing those things.
I
which
believe
is
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's so she is just so much into it. So
Yeah. Well, my glass is empty.
Yep.
I'd like. Yeah, yours is not quite. But yeah, we can continue this discussion and talk maybe a little bit more about our experiences and role-playing games. But for now, let's get the second drink going. We'll see you in a second here. Hello, welcome back. We have got new glasses in front of us, a new mead in front of us. And I think the first thing I noticed is it is a different color, so it's a little bit lighter. But Nick, what do we got here?
We have the Lavender Fields mead. And let me tell you, it smells like lavender right now.
it smells like your grandmother's bathroom.
Yeah.
That kind of worries me because our grandmother used a lot of lavender, and I have a little bit of a negative connotation with the smell of lavender at
I
this point.
agree.
I agree. That was exactly what I was thinking.
Oh no!
So this might not be our favorite, but this is a very floral. This will be a very floral episode.
Yeah.
Even our last one is a floral
Yeah.
one. So light mead.
All right, let's find out. That smell is interesting.
Whoa. It's odd. It's really odd. It's not how I imagine mead to taste.
It doesn't taste like it smells, though.
What did you drink?
Yeah.
What did you just drink? Because I'm letting you know, I'm getting a lot of lavender right now.
I am getting a lot of lavender. I guess it is a soapy taste.
It is a soapy taste. Yeah. I'm not gonna. I will be 100% with you guys. This one is not my favorite.
It's lingering on the taste.
Yeah,
buds.
it
Pretty
is.
good
Yeah.
as well.
I'm gonna finish this because I don't believe in wasting mead, but this one is not my favorite.
No, once again, I go back to the two that I really liked that we had before.
Yeah,
The coffee one and that cherry one.
sure.
This is not like that at all.
It's not like a lot of things.
Yes, it has a bit of a very lavender forward taste. I almost want to say there's like a little bit of like a tart kind of middle that's a bit weird.
Yeah, there's something in there.
Yeah, and then again, I feel like the mead taste happens at the end, but it's a lot more mild of a quote unquote mead taste, like that kind of sweet flavor at the end is a lot more mild, and I don't know if that's because it's toned down from the very aggressive, very forward lavender in the beginning.
I feel like it is.
Yeah.
I feel like that lavender flavor just carries on through.
It coats your mouth.
I think we may have familial trauma involving lavender.
Just like a experience.
But I think if you like the smell of lavender and you want the smell of lavender on your taste buds, this isn't a terrible drink.
No. I mean, we had lavender tea. I've had lavender tea before.
Right.
Not my thing.
I didn't even think tea was your thing.
Well, I can drink tea occasionally, but lavender tea is definitely not my thing. But I know that it's very popular. Lavender in a lot of things.
Yeah.
People have asked us for lavender cakes too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just not. And once again, it may be that, we're scarred by.
Maybe a little
Affected by the overuse in our environment.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Actually, the more that I'm drinking this, because I just had a second and a third sip, the more I drink this, the less oppressive it feels. I think the flavor and the taste really catches you off guard at first. And perhaps truly lavender fields, but I didn't think it was a good thing at first.
I think the more you sip it, the more your taste buds get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's that middle flavor comes out a little bit more.
Whatever that middle flavor.
Whatever it is, it's trying to do a lot.
Yeah.
And I appreciate its work.
I'm trying to figure out what you would eat with this.
I'm thinking a pork roast.
Yeah. Something with like rosemary.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Like a garlic rosemary bread.
Oh, that could work too.
Or yeah, like a garlic rosemary roast beef.
Oh yeah, roast beef. I feel like could do well. I think a roast would go. I don't know why.
Not my thing.
I was gonna say, I think
roasted squash.
could do maybe like a
Rosemary
rock.
potatoes.
Well, I was gonna say like a
Rosemary.
rockfish
Oh,
or
yeah.
like a
Oh, yeah.
tilapia.
Oh, okay.
A catfish.
No, not a catfish. I think it would have to be more. So there's a lot of times when you get delicate fish, there'll be lavender in the sauce. in the
I'm
cream
drinking a
sauce.
Heineken with my catfish.
Yeah, but I feel like the meat itself I can't match with a lighter fish.
Well, I mean, I was thinking like a medium one, like a cod or a rockfish or something like that.
I think a rockfish is getting closer.
Yeah. Anyways,
I feel like we need to have rockfish now. We've had salmon the most recent times. I feel like we should get a little.
yeah, I mean, rockfish is good because it's like it's got the taste of a delicate fish, but it has the substance of like lobster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something denser.
Yeah.
Answer.
Anyways,
All right, we were talking about TTRPGs and kind of more specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't think we're married to that. We're kind
Yeah.
of talking about a little bit of everything.
We'll probably reference other things to have other points of views and references.
so this section for me was okay. I decide I'm gonna play Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
What do I need to do?
Step 1. What are you gonna play?
Yeah.
Because for everyone listening, if it is your first time getting into Dungeons and Dragons, do not try to be a game master.
Yeah.
Unless you
It's
are
rough.
unless you are with a group of other people who have no idea what's happening. Then it's just absurd fun, but you will put in a lot of work to try and make it good.
So I think that I would think you would want to be a character first,
Yep.
just to understand the mechanics of it.
Highly recommend it. You have your you only have to worry about you.
Right.
Yeah.
As a dungeon master, you have to worry about all your players and the whole world.
The environment and all that stuff, and the quest and all of that.
As a quick aside, when we say game master, dungeon master, they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
Dungeon master is just typically more kind of exclusive or more specific to a game like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But they're interchangeable. People will say DM, GM, game master, dungeon master, interchangeable.
And it also just flips based on whatever module, because every game wants
yeah.
to have their own unique version of whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm patrol master.
Yeah, basically, it's like I'm the observer,
Yeah,
the
I'm-
storyteller.
I'm the mastermind.
Yeah. quick side note, we said what a game master was very briefly.
Yeah.
But we just mentioned exactly what the role is. But like, let's like specifically spell it out. You have your players. They have their one character, and they create a story. The game master creates the world, the cities, the towns, every person that isn't a player, the shops, the story, the weather, the smell in the air. They are the entire painter to create a landscape for your players to start taking steps in.
And the game master determines the size, extent, and complexity of the environment.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Because I'm so me thinking this, if I'm doing it for the first time,
Yeah.
I'm doing an escape room, because I only have one room, one environment to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, and you can absolutely do that. I think what I will say is like being a dungeon master, being a game master, can be very rewarding, but is also incredibly like time consuming, draining. Like when I was GMing, I would like finish the session and be like, okay, I need a nap now.
Yeah, when you finish, like when I got back from school, and I hadn't played D&D for years, and I started like getting my friend group back together to play.
Yeah.
I would do 9-hour sessions with them.
Yep.
But after that, I would walk upstairs and just hit the bed and just drop. I would feel so drained.
Yeah, well, it's because you are everyone and everything in the world. And so if you two are my players and I'm the dungeon master, right? You could be, I want to go talk to the shopkeeper to buy some items. And I'll say, okay, cool. And then Nick might go, okay, I would like to explore that creepy dark alleyway that looks like there's a hooded figure down there. And I'd go, okay, great.
And boom, your attention is now ripped in half, and you have done the cardinal sin of splitting the party immediately.
But then I'm like, okay, all right, Jeff, you want to go talk to the shopkeeper? And I'm like, okay, either I've written down a bunch of like characters that could be shopkeepers, or I have an idea. And so I'm like, okay, you walk into this potion shop. At the counter is an old lady who says, hello, dearie, welcome. And we have a whole dialogue and interaction. You're staying in your character. I'm in this character of this old lady.
So that's probably one of the biggest questions I have is when you have an expansive world or you're playing for 9 hours, how much do you set up these characters?
So much. Okay. Well, okay. All right. Okay. You can never prep enough. Is what I learned.
That's what I say. I'm thinking there's no way that I could know I'm thinking that I want these to be just like mechanical.
Yeah, well, so that this is kind of the fun part and also the scary part of Dungeons and Dragons. Back to this example, if I'm the GM and you both are my players, I have been hinting with other characters that there's a burglar or a robber in the town that I want you to stop, to capture. And Nick goes, I'm not really interested in that. That doesn't really fit my character.
My character wouldn't care about that. Leaves.
And Nick's character's like, you know what? That tavern over there, that seems like I can cause trouble in there. And so I've planned this session where I think you're going to go after this burglar. And instead, you guys are causing a ruckus at the tavern.
Yeah.
Right?
I got to do a 180.
Yeah. Or even more so, you don't want to stay in the town that I thought you guys would, and you want to go somewhere else. And all of a sudden, that prep work that I've done for this town, I'll just put that in a different folder.
Whenever they come back.
Yeah.
Whenever they come back, we'll reopen that. So for your actual question, how much prep? What do you do? It is whatever the GM has prepped.
Yeah.
Is the answer, and then otherwise, it is on the GM to fix it on the spot, basically. Like,
So a lot of improv.
a lot of
Yeah.
improv. Well, to some degree.
Right.
How I do it, which is I don't think rare, which is I have a list of cities, and then within each city, I have a list of taverns, shops, buildings, notable individuals in it. But sometimes my players end up in a town that I didn't think existed until they showed up there. And then I have another document and other files that's just shops, names, characters floating in an abyss whenever I need to be called upon and pulled. And then I immediately, boom, new town. Oh, let me just there, a list of like stuff. This is now the town. I've immediately put stuff into it.
I will say, when we talk about a game like Dungeons and Dragons or a tabletop role-playing game as building a narrative with your players, that is literally what Nick could probably write a novel with his world. Like, you are building everything.
Is there ultimately a goal? Is there ultimately a winning? Because, I mean, you've been playing with this one group for how many years now?
I think we've been playing in this campaign for about 3 years now. Maybe a little longer.
So is there a point when you go, we won, we're done?
Well, yes and no. In our campaign, yes. In fact, I think we're going to end the next time that we meet, which is a very emotional time for some of our players and for our DM as well, because we are at the big bad. In this campaign that we're playing, we are killing gods. We're killing the gods of the world, and some of us are replacing them by absorbing their powers. And there is a god Illithid that has been lurking in the shadows, has been draining things, and we're kind of like gearing up for this final fight against this big bad. And after that fight, I think there will be some sort of epilogue, but our story for our characters, the thing that we've been working for the last 3 years, will have kind of concluded. Like, that's what everything has been leading to this moment, this kind of climax. And once this point ends, our DM wants to take a break because he's been writing for 3 years straight. And someone else in our group is going to step up and run a campaign for a little bit.
On the flip side of that, on how I've been running my campaign for the last
probably 3 years.
3 years, it's episodic.
Okay, so each episode has a goal.
He's doing like, was it like Monster of the Week kind of style?
Where it's, we have this quest. Oh, let's go check it out. And as a person, I am not as good as writing an overarching story for my characters, my players to nonstop like press forward. So I give my players a challenge and give each of them a specific character objective that they should always have in their mind, and I'll be helping them achieve that as they're going through my world. Like and my campaign, I don't expect characters to last terribly long.
and there's so many different ways to play this, but like in my campaign that I'm playing in, our characters are meant to last for a while.
Yeah.
Like if one of us died for real in this game, it would throw everything off. So either we die together, or this character's not gonna die.
Where we're in the two ends of it, where I think two characters ago, one of my characters was like, so I think I'm gonna get married and retire my character, and like he did that.
Yeah. And
then like another one was like, I'm just gonna walk off to a mist and go on to a new character. And like my players have the freedom to decide, because I have a very casual and friendly and relaxed. Like, that's why I can do such long campaigns with them, because it's not strenuous on me. Like, in the moment, it's not like I'm doing like really crazy stuff. Like, I'll have moments of like heightened, but for the most part, it's like my players are figuring out their characters, being able to walk around, enjoy, and like really pursue specific storylines for themselves. And then as soon as they decide, I think that's good for my character, they get to do that again with a brand new one.
Yeah.
So one of the things that all we see you do is you go, I'm going to make a character sheet.
Oh my God. Oh, we totally deviated. Step 1, you said that you wanted to get into TTRPG.
Welcome back.
This is how it goes. Step 1, you would like to create a character. Incredible. Thank you for joining us. What you will be handed in any TTRPG is a core rule book or a player's handbook or some other fancy schmancy name.
Okay, so this is something that was very funny to me. They were talking about they used the 5th edition.
We used 5th edition. Yeah.
5th edition of it, but there are, as you go back in versions, there's a little bit more structure and rules around this.
Yeah.
And they were talking about a friend of theirs that only does 3.5 edition, right?
Right, or if they run a different kind of edition, like if they run 5e, they have like their own DM's handbook for it.
And you were saying that the one person you know has 100-page.
Yeah, but again, this is like, this game can be so many different things. In that kind of way, they want a lot of the interactions to be less up to chance or less up to improv or a roll of the dice, and more of like you as the player to know whether or not you can do certain things.
Like if you're a bard, you can tell a story.
Right, exactly. So
you don't have to roll dice because you're a bard. You
Right.
know how to tell a story.
I think in 5e for Dungeons and Dragons, they made it so that it is easy to get into, or easier than some, I won't say it's super easy, but easier to get into than some of the other editions or some of the other games out there. But by doing that, it has simplified down a lot of those core rules so that the barrier to entry is lower.
So it's more to chance.
Yeah, but some people don't like the lessening of structure, and sometimes it's nice to know for certain whether or not you can do something, instead of having to be like, hey DM, can I do
Can
this?
I try this?
Yeah, and the DM being like, oh my god, how do I even like run this encounter? Like, my player just said he wants to eat a barrel. What do I do?
Yeah.
What do I make him roll?
The DM squints his eye and goes, "You what?"
Okay, so you get a character sheet.
You get a character sheet. You get a little rule book. You are told you don't have to read it. Please do, though. So obviously, as a good attentive player, you will not even read what you're going to play. No. So creating a character. It starts with a basis. What would you like to do? So you, most of these games have a class or species system or occupation species system where you get to choose what you are to begin, right? Like, I'm a dwarf, I'm a dragonborn, I'm a human.
I'm a human, yeah.
Like, and then you're like, oh, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I don't know, what can I do? And you're like, I like to cast spells. Oh, wizard, there you go. High five, right?
Until it gets complicated and it's like, actually, there are several different spellcasting subclasses that you could be playing. And now you need to determine what kind you are.
But not to get into that. You basically are just, what would you like to play? What would you like your character to do? And then probably you put your own special flavor on that character. You get to choose its name. You get to choose morals. You get to choose ethical points of views. You get to choose if they're religious. You get to choose just any variety, what they look like.
So in the skill set that you have from the starting point, I know that you've rolled dice before to determine what level of skill, or is it like an allocation? So I've seen some games where you allocate points.
It's both. It can be either. So yes, some games have a point allocation system. Other games have you roll for your stats, which can be interesting. I think rolling dice is always fun, but sometimes the point allocation system is really good if you are like, I'm a wizard, I want to be really smart. And you don't need to worry about, I hope I roll a high enough number.
Oh, I guess 13 is my highest stat.
I'm a dumb wizard.
Yeah. Which I love playing those kind of classes as well.
Yeah.
But if you're starting out and you're like, I want to be really good at
I just want to be
casting
good at
spells,
what I can do.
yeah, then sometimes that point allocation system is there. And Dungeons and Dragons is mainly a roll, but it has a like
It's set up for that.
Yeah, it has a variant option for you to just like point select essentially.
All right, so now I've got my character. So we've talked about some. So species, class, or occupation, right?
Yeah.
A bard or a magician or something like that.
Absolutely.
And you could be a lizard class, right?
Yeah, you can be a lizard person. Absolutely. After that or before that, depending on your dungeon master, they will most likely do an introduction thing, or they'll at least like give you a rough idea of the world that you're going to be existing in.
Do you also get introduced to all the characters?
No.
So yeah.
No. That's a case by case, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, you'll most likely know the people you're playing with. So like if you're just talking to them, be like, hey, what are you doing? Well, there you go. You know, it's like,
But it's not formalized where each person says, this is what my character is, or
Yeah, so oftentimes before you sit down at the table, and I think some of like my favorite DMs have done this, is before we even sit down at the table, they will send me a summary of their world. And this is literally into like the fantasy writing. Like they are writing out an introduction to their world and perhaps a purpose as to why my character is where they are.
yeah, it could include like a call to action
Yes.
or like an inciting incident to immediately place your character where the like beginning of the
so you
the
know
game
where
begins.
you're starting in the story.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you can also be like, oh, they mentioned that there was a town that was almost massacred. Well, I'd like my character to be from there. And then you can insert your character, because that's the other really important thing is you need to make sure that your character has lived in this world.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Like there are some campaigns where the dungeon master wants you to be ignorant of the world, whether it's due to amnesia or you've been transported into a new plane, right?
Yep.
But for the most part, you want to have some idea of the world that you have lived in. Like you were born in this world. You should know where
connection, right? Yeah.
you have established bonds and connections.
And this is where, like, before we have even sat down to play the game, the DM and the players are already working in collaboration to build this story.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but like the worst feeling is to show up at a table with a player who's like, okay, I actually am from this town and my brother lives here. And you're like, oh, that wasn't in what I had planned.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I would say for the most important thing with all of these things we're giving you and like all these like notes on like how to begin, where to start, what should you do? Communication is the most important thing.
Yeah.
There are house rules, which we'll discuss like very briefly. And it's basically just rules that are exclusive to the group that you're with, which means you talk about boundaries, things that you don't want to see in your game. Because it's so open-ended, you want to make sure that there's limitations, right? Like, you don't want your players to just be like, oh yeah, we're just going to start beheading kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
Or murdering each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or murdering each other.
yeah, exactly. Like there needs to be, with such an open-ended and free experience, the group has to agree where the line is drawn before you get there, right? Because the last thing you want is being like, you finish a game and you're like, I never want to play with this group again. That was awful, right? And at the same time, you also a lot of games have something called a session 0, which means it's not session 1. It's not like when your characters are meeting or da-da-da. It's like a session where all of you are meeting up. You have all your character sheets. You're not actually going to be propelling the story, but you're just figuring out all of the dynamics or world just to make sure that everything is smooth for when you actually start playing.
Because like as you can hear, a lot of the times these sessions either take several hours or they are like long-standing campaigns that happen over like many years, weeks.
We were talking about the one YouTube thing where one episode will be building up to an encounter, And then the next episode will be 3 hours of fighting.
Yeah, we were talking about Dimension 20, Dropout's Dungeons and Dragons series, and how they kind of lay it out in the fact that one episode is typically like very RP, like very role-playing, very talk and clues heavy, and then the next episode will be entirely based on fighting. Because fighting in games like Dungeons and Dragons is time-consuming.
It is a slog, to say it generously.
Yeah.
You would much rather just be going to taverns and meeting people.
Yes,
Yeah. I think Nick and I are in the same boat where the role-playing part of the game is
the most fun.
So much fun.
You can be fast, quippy. You can explore around. You can do all this stuff. As soon as combat begins, you're like, okay, I'm going to roll my dice. Okay, I miss. That's my turn.
Yeah.
And then it just goes on.
Or it comes down to, because really quickly, you mentioned like some of these things like Dimension 20 having like boards and like big mats and stuff, and sometimes you don't have any of that and you're just kind of sitting at a table and he's like, okay, there are 2 enemies in front of you, and you have to be like, okay, with my movement speed, can I make it up to them?
Like, how close are they together?
Yeah, how close are they together?
Are they near any of my friends?
Yeah, can I use a spell to bounce
Are
these
they near
off
a
them?
cart?
Yeah.
So anyways, all right, so let's continue this with the third drink.
Yes.
Because our glasses are empty.
Once again.
And then we'll
Somehow.
do the next one.
All right, see you in a second. And we are back with our third and final drink. This one is even lighter than before. I guess with these green bottles, it's hard to tell. But I didn't realize we would have like a gradient going on.
Yeah, it's really, really light. Still mead. This is the Piedmont Wildflower. To note the region of Virginia that
we live in.
That we live in. I mean, based on what we're looking at and just the name, this might just be close to a white wine. Just really light and delicate.
It might be, but it doesn't smell that way.
This is important to note that our father did pour the drink, so he does know what it smells like.
Yeah, we shall see.
Tink.
Prost.
I feel like my nose might be broken. I was kind of smelling the lavender still.
It's odd.
It is odd. It's hard to describe. It's like a flat taste on my tongue.
It's like an earthy bouquet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of putting it.
The flavor just stops.
I don't know. I'm still tasting it on my tongue.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just it hit me. The earthiness hit me, and then it.
I think you're right. I don't think it lingers as long as some of the other ones, especially the last one really lingered. I was about to say, I think I really like this one comparatively to the last
right.
one.
It's hard to be like fresh slate right after that one.
Yeah.
It also may be that we're not the best delicate drinkers as
Yeah.
it is.
None of us are florists or botanically inclined.
Yeah, we're not going to give you the sommelier experience where we're like, oh, notes of
Well,
cardamom.
Now you say that, but I also know. So I like coffee straight up.
Yes.
So I like a very, very strong flavor. I like whiskeys and scotch.
Yeah.
I like champagne because it's really dry and is a stronger flavor. You guys drink a lot of different teas
Yes.
with a wide profile of flavors.
Mm-hmm.
And you understand and know the subtleties of green tea, black tea, white tea. So I think that you guys are more akin to the more floral flavors. However,
Yeah.
However, combining it with alcohol
yeah,
really throws in an obvious wrench into the
and
flavor.
And I think I don't know how you guys are watching this, but the last episode where we had that herbal tequila, that threw a wrench into it also.
I agree. That was like really different.
Yeah,
than what
it
I
was
expecting.
so dramatic. With each of them,
Yeah.
it was still a prominent whatever that note was.
And it was not tequila note.
no,
Right.
it was not the typical agave
Right.
like that you typically get. It was an additional.
But it was a strong, prominent flavor.
Yes.
This is more it's a prominent flavor, but it's a floral flavor that's not typical.
It's not typical, and it's a flavor that I would love to play around with because
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I think I'm just at a point where I'm like, ooh, what is this? It's like it's a more of like a weird like what's going on?
What's going on right now? Yeah.
So we've been trying to think what this would eat with, but I was also thinking what we could drink with it. And I was thinking if you had a tea with this,
Oh.
Poured it into the tea or just like drink it side by side?
with it. So kind of
Yeah.
like the Jaeger tea, but not as
I was thinking the same thing because like with tea, it's not uncommon to put honey in your tea. So I honestly don't know why you would put something like Jaeger when you could put something like mead, which I feel like would complement the tea a little bit more.
Better.
Yeah.
I will also say we are drinking all three of these bottles chilled,
Yes.
which is I think the typical recommended. Hot mead is a thing.
You're right. Yes, hot
Yeah.
mead is also a thing.
And I think this warm might just trick our minds enough to think it is a tea because of this herbal floral aspect.
Oh wait, that's actually such a
So
That's what I was
just
thinking.
this mead hot without
Yeah,
anything
wait,
else
That's actually a great
might just be closer to a tea.
Yeah.
that's why I was thinking about adding it to a tea,
Yeah.
because I think that if you add that kind of grassy kind of notes on the bottom from
Yeah.
tea, and it's warmed, it would give you a different impression of it.
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
In any case,
back to the episode.
Back to our scheduled program.
Yeah. So we've got our character built.
Yes.
Now we talked about a little bit. You talked about scenario 0, or you talked about
session 0.
session 0, or you talked about getting an understanding of the world.
Yeah.
So you're sitting at the table. You've done your session 0.
Yep.
We're on session 1 now.
You're in session 1. The DM says, "This is where we are," or how does it start?
Yeah, typically the stereotypical way to start, and I don't think it's wrong, but the stereotypical way to start, and I think it's an easy way to start, which is why it's stereotypical, is the 3 of you, the 4 of you, are all sitting around a table in a boisterous tavern.
Yeah.
You know, it's the DM describes what is happening. He might describe a tavern. The bartender is pouring drinks. There's a group in the corner that's being a little bit too loud. They've got a little too many tankards kind of stacked up on the table. There's a shady hooded figure in the other corner. There is some people arm wrestling a couple tables over. And typically this is where the call to action is introduced as well.
Or
Or
the characters introducing themselves.
oh yeah,
That's what I'm saying,
That
is-
probably happens first.
Yeah,
So,
that's what
If
I was
you're all sitting around at a table, I was also saying the DM introducing this in this moment is the last moment of freedom or of control.
You're letting it go.
So this intro is probably scripted to like a T for the DM.
I have literally just written out like introductions.
As soon as they end, boom. They have no longer any control. Right? It is their last moment of control. So they either prolong it or they put their foot in it.
They
like,
really put their foot in it.
They
Yeah.
really try and like capture it. And then they usually go, you are looking at each other. Blank. Please describe yourself, or please introduce yourself. And then it's an obligation for the players to go around as themselves in that moment to describe their character, reveal any fun fact if they would like. It's an icebreaker for the group. say maybe their species, maybe their occupation, maybe give little hints if they are describing their appearance, and then you just go around in a circle.
Does the DM have to, or do they normally explain why this group of people are together?
No, there's no rule.
Yeah. So I think typically in like your session 0 or in that kind of introductory thing, it might say something like, the town has been infested with zombies, and the mayor has put a bounty on these zombies, and therefore your adventuring group has come together.
Or a really easy one. There's been a rumor of disappearances happening.
Yeah.
That is the classic.
Yeah.
Some villagers or caravans have been missing on the road. You've met at a tavern to convene and talk.
Yeah, and so a lot of times there's a call to action built into it, but not always. Because again, there's literally no rule for it.
Right.
But like for convenience sake, there's a call to action built into it, and oftentimes, you're under the impression that you and the other players have never met before. Like your characters have never met unless you've worked with the DM. Like, oh, we're actually long lost brothers, or we're best friends. We were in an old adventuring party, and now we're looking for a new one. Now we're here. And so this is that opportunity for you to make a first impression with your other players, with your other characters.
And you explain kind of species and class, right?
Yeah, you could say like, I'm playing Grom, or I am Grom. Grom is a 6'7" half orc with tusks kind of sticking out. He's got this sickly green hue to his skin. He's wearing a wolf pelt that looks kind of disheveled, like he doesn't really take good care of himself. His hair is matted from side to side, and he's got several scars on his face, and he carries a big battle axe by his side.
So, sorry, I'm trying to move on because of all these questions.
Yeah.
So, does the DM try to manage who the characters are?
No.
So he doesn't say
Okay,
They probably shouldn't.
No, but to an extent.
Yeah.
because like I would think, okay, I need a thief, I need a warrior, I need a magician.
That is, it's the player's discretion.
Yeah, it's up to the player's discretion. Most of the time, it's not a conversation that I've had with the DM. It's more of a conversation with like
Other players.
what are you playing? Okay, you're playing a like spellcaster. What are you playing? You're playing an assassin. Okay, I'll play like a front line.
And when that doesn't happen, I have a session that happened with his group where I was like, I'm ready to DM. I'm so excited. What is everyone playing? And then I got a list of 4 half orc barbarians. And I went,
I guess it's a war party.
every enemy I had just disintegrated, but they were the dumbest group of people ever.
So okay, so the composition is not so important then.
No, not really.
Not really.
I think it's just basically what tools you want to have.
I think it's important if you're running more of a hardcore session, but most of the sessions that we play in are more social based.
Yeah.
And so it's less important of like
I'm not really going to care what you're playing.
Yeah, it's less important about like making sure you have a perfect class balance.
I also think that I would think that it would be different if you're running a Nick game where monster of the week and characters change out rather than yours, which is a long-term game. You need certain characters to make that long lasting.
It's true.
Yeah. What I will say is for ours, we were all very intentional about not stepping on each other's toes in the fact that we have a cleric, a barbarian, a ranger, and a paladin. Like we all are like very different in what we do.
So you complement each other.
Yeah. Well, we try to.
Yeah, and I think at this point I've had 2 rangers together. I've had 2 rogues together. I've had 2 warriors together. Like very like to clarify, my D&D campaign that I've been running is just 2 other players.
Yeah.
Which is it's very intimate, and I can really focus on each of their stories. Is
Right.
like what I really enjoy. Like I can ask these 2 guys to really like work with them, and I've spent hours with each of them every time they're pitching a new character to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I like it's already established. Like, hey, your character's you know how the song and dance goes. Your character's going to disappear, finish up, be satisfied, not unsatisfied, whatever. You got to have a character or two in the backlog.
Right.
And in order to lock that in, from my point of view, I give them like a full like actors like characterization. Like I frustrate them a little bit, but I push them to really figure out what they want their character to be. And I really and I have the ability with just 2 people. I wouldn't be able to put that time and energy if I had 6 people focusing on each of their storylines.
Right.
But if I had 2 people that I'm like, okay, cool. You guys, I've spent, I don't know, 7 hours for each of these new characters that you've just thrown in. Here's how they meet. Boom. They are not actors, but they can buy in enough to be like, I've worked with Nick enough to really flesh out my character. I know how they act. I know how they're going to see things. I know how they're going to agree or disagree with other people. And then they can just run with that.
So I'm going to make a really weird comparison to this, but this is like poker night. This is where friends get together. They play this game.
Yeah.
Yep.
They do a little bit of drinking and
Yes.
they move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If I'm not driving, I'm probably drinking.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a great new reality of social night.
I
Sure.
agree. Yeah. It's just an additional thing. And it's a lot of pressure, unfortunately, for one person to manage and deal with. But it's so convenient for the others because they don't have to bring anything. You don't have to prepare anything. You're like,
Just bring a bottle of alcohol.
I know my character. I already
Wow.
have this like on my phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just leave it at, wherever we're meeting. I'm
Yeah.
like, boom, there you go.
Now, one of the things that I think is interesting is that you have one of your sessions with a very good friend, and it's just you two.
Yeah.
How does that work? How different is that?
Okay. So what I will say is, as context for this, I was a part of a campaign with my friends, and we were all playing in person. And then I left for college, and he was like, "I still want you to be a part of like when I'm doing D&D stuff, but it's not going to work if like half of them or like most of them are in person, and then you're just online. Like it's not really going to work." And so, in a weird kind of turn of events, I was playing his big bad. And so
The main villain.
the main villain.
Big bad is such a
Yeah.
it's kind of like a very soft term, but it means a lot in the D&D space. Like I'm the what's BBEG, like big bad evil genius or something like that.
Big bad evil genius.
Is that what it's?
Yeah.
Okay. But like it is the ultimate evil.
Yeah. And in his world, there were moon elves called the Eladrin that had taken over the world, and I was the king or the leader, the imperator of the Eladrin. And it was my job to, when we had our one-on-one sessions, it was less about, I would like to do this. It's more of like, okay, you are the imperator of the Eladrin.
What sort of policies do you want to introduce?
Exactly. It's very political in that regard. And then he'd be like, Imperator, sir, I've brought you this news that's happened. Apparently one of your advisors has gone missing, and reports are that an adventuring party has something to do with it. And you're like, oh, really? An adventuring party, you say? And so it's really fun because I got to when I play characters, I play like very good characters. I play clerics, I play paladins. I don't really play things that are kind of evil aligning. And so it's really fun. It was really fun for me to play this imperator, this big bad, the evil guy, to be like, oh, I'm sorry, there's a settlement on the outskirts that was slandering Eladrin. Execute them and their families. Like, we can't have that.
Which I think is unique and different, and also
Yeah.
shows such a great amount of flexibility in how you can play this.
Absolutely.
I'll add to that. I have also been a part of a one-on-one D&D session as a player, and I started out as a level 1. The world, it was like a villain campaign, but the world is 99% like good. There is no evil in the world. And I'm playing like a little henchman trying to figure out my place in the world. And that was really fun because I was basically interacting with like, tucked away dungeon bosses that are just hiding from it. And like, I'm just like wandering around being like, what's going on? And like that was my experience. But the one-on-one made it so isolated feeling, which I thought added such an interesting aspect.
It kind of going off of that, obviously you know that you're the villain, you know that the party is probably going to win out in the end. And I really want to give props to my friend here. When he was running the session, that feeling of being alone really started to creep in near the end of our time together, because as the Imperator, I was watching my kingdom crumble, not only from this random, stupid adventuring party that honestly didn't even know what they were doing half the time, but also from the inside, these internal policies that the DM was running where, I thought it was all good in my kingdom, but my one of my governors has been plotting against me this whole time, and now everything is crumbling. It was a very political campaign. It was so good. And unfortunately, I think I got more out of it than the adventuring party because, he would give me reports on them and they're like, oh, they accidentally killed one of your paladins, but they didn't mean to. It was just...
Yeah, I think it's a remarkable thing. This is why I wanted to talk about this, because I just think it's so... There's nothing that I can say that I grew up with that's similar to it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of things that are similar.
Unless you're in that space. Like I think that's why we are still so in love with it.
Yeah.
Because you cannot find a replacement at this point. Like there's nothing to really compare to.
Now you say that, but we also wanted to talk about that there are other RPGs out there that you can play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now you talked about one that was based on going to 5e, which was what, Pathfinder?
Yeah.
Pathfinder.
So quick history.
Yeah.
When 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons came out, I think it was 4th.
I think it's 4th.
A group of D&D players went, no, this is not what we like, and they split. They deviated, and it was a huge number of people, and then they took it upon themselves to basically recreate and rebuild a brand new system in the essence of 3.5 and 3, but with their whole new sort of identity, whether it's due to legal issues or they made it their own to really be a flushed out system, and is now the biggest competitor
yeah.
within that setting of D&D.
Yeah.
And it's high fantasy also.
High fantasy. Yeah.
It is like literally, I think you can't really talk about Dungeons and Dragons without talking about Pathfinder, because they are kind of like,
it's like a brotherhood.
Yeah, it's like Roman and Greek Orthodox. Mm-hmm. Like they're just kind of running parallel.
Yeah. But if everything we're talking about is just snooze fest and really not interesting, and you're like, I don't care about this medieval stuff, or I don't care about elves, that's for Santa. There are a lot of systems.
So many.
If you are like, basically, if any setting calls out to you, oh my God, there are so many systems. We just mentioned Greek.
Yep.
There is a tabletop RPG called Aegon, which is all about getting the Greek gods boons and doing a campaign in ancient Greece and fighting monsters and dealing with like the gods. There is, if you like Scooby-Doo and 80s period, you have Kids on Bikes, which is like a Stranger Things vibe, or like I don't know, adolescent investigation into like supernatural.
Yeah, you were talking about is that I really love like World War II movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about, well, maybe there's an RPG out there that's World War II based.
And we found like 6 of them.
One of them had a really weird name.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like Glorp or something, but not that.
Yeah, Glurp.
Oh, yeah.
and behind enemy lines or behind the lines or something like
yeah.
that. So if you're interested in World War II or World War One, if you're interested more in the future, we obviously said that. I mean, obviously it happened in a long time ago in a far away.
Yeah.
But there is a Star Wars module.
Yep.
But there's Star Trek ones. There's also, if you want to maintain on Earth, there's Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is the staple of the future, dystopian. Neon, Neo, everything.
I'm pretty sure your favorite IP has it. I think there's a Dune tabletop RPG as well.
There's a Dune one. Basically, they're the ones that have established as TTRPGs. Vampire the Masquerade. If you love that sort of aesthetic of either Victorian or modern day vampires with like heavy supernatural elements, that fits in. If you like eldritch horrors and Cthulhu and all of that stuff, Call of Cthulhu is the biggest TTRPG, I would say. Like next to D&D, Call of Cthulhu is massive.
Yeah.
And then any niche or environment that you're like, they would never make a role-playing game out of this.
No.
They have Tales of Equestria, which is a My Little Pony tabletop RPG.
There's a Rick and Morty module out there.
Yeah. And it whatever setting that really draws you in, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting part for this one is that when you get a group of people together, you're always looking for what's that activity you're going to do together. Now, we are big board games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
play board
card games.
Yeah.
Or improv games also. And I just think that this is something to consider if you're in a group of people together, that you can get one of these like short scenario session kind of games and do that if it's a common theme that you have.
And what I will also say is a lot of these TTRPGs, if you find like a setting, a theme that you really like, a lot of them have what we call modules or like pre-built sessions, so that if you're like, oh my God, I really love the Eldritch Horror, but I don't want to build a whole world about it, they will have like a short booklet or a couple pages that are basically like, this is the call to action. This is what you're going to tell your players. This is a character. These are like the characters that are there in the town that they're in. This is what they'll say. This is the information that they like want to give the players if the players ask the right questions. And then it's like a very skeleton base for you to work off of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of those
There's
in
a lot.
everything. And D&D I think does it the best out of all of them, just because there's so much support. And I think no matter what, D&D has really, really good writers.
Plus, they've been doing it for decades.
They've been doing it for a long time.
And the other thing is, it's not even just necessarily Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons writers, but like there's so much third party extra
support
stuff. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Maybe not necessarily,
it's not above board.
prioritized, by Wizards of the Coast, but still, there's like people love these games and they want to add their own things.
Yeah. So if you do not feel like you can cultivate or craft this like perfect environment, look around.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. There are so many tools to help and support you in your game and your players, or if you are a player, there are so many different aspects for you to have fun. We have just described the basically two ends of a long-running campaign.
Yep.
And we have both thoroughly enjoyed our experiences, because I think in the end, it's really not about the story. It's really not about, I hit the biggest number. It is literally about cultivating a story with players and characters and just having a laugh. Because I think the best moments isn't like, oh my gosh, remember when I crit that guy and cut off his head? the moments are like, dude, you remember that really funny moment where I rolled a awful number and I just like dropped my pants in front of the villain?
Although it was kind of really nice of me to hit over 100 points of damage on the God of Death.
Okay.
She did not know what was going on.
All right. Well, my bad. Sometimes you get those moments.
Yeah. But I think the biggest takeaways are communication is super important. have fun and just like play your way. You can play a super hardcore game, or you can just have fun and laughs and play Monster of the Week. Either way, it's super fun. I highly recommend checking out some TTRPGs. Your local game stores will probably have nights where they're running things that you can join a table or convince your friends, force your friends to play a game with you.
Yeah. Quickly.
But yeah, quickly. What is your favorite drink of the night? Dad, we'll start with you.
I would say that none of them are my favorite. I think in the end, though, I think the third one kind of hit the right spot.
The
for me.
wildflower?
Yeah.
Piedmont Wildflower.
It was different.
Yeah, I agree. Well.
The first one was, I think it was good,
Yep.
but it was, like we said, it was kind of mid.
Yeah. It was
But,
okay.
but this one was different enough where it wasn't overwhelming like the lavender. So I would say this one.
All right, Nick, what's your favorite?
I'm going with the first one.
Yep.
I feel like it was average, consistent, but also just really solid.
I love the first one as well. I love this one was nice, but I like mead. I like the taste of mead, so the first one really embodied.
The first
that
one actually had the
for me.
Taste
really,
of mead.
the really apparent flavor of mead.
All right.
All right, well, that's it for this episode. We will catch you next time. See you on the flip side.
Thank you.
Bye.